Hi everyone, Joseph here.
So I spent the last 4 hours. I was up since 4 a.m. this morning, because I just had this idea and this, aha moment or reoccur moment, right? Um, about this whole thing about trust. And because I was in the library yesterday and I came across this book called The Trusted Advisor. I forgot who's the author, but he had a formula in terms of what he defined trust is to be. I thought it was quite interesting. And then I was thinking about, in our own perspective of the hiring, the job search process, right? What would that look like? So I came across, about and created this thing, what I call the hiring trust ratio, where the whole goal here is we want to kind of raise our value, lower the risk, and multiply with clarity. All right. So in this kind of video and as well as this guide that I created, it's going to show you how to raise your value, lower your risks, and multiply your clarity to land offers and interviews without applying online. Because at the end of the day, trust isn't magic, it's just math. All right. So what's inside? In this 11 part, there's just going to be your introduction. Why trust, not skills, decides who gets hired. Second, the hiring trust ratio, where value divided by risk times clarity. Part three is looking at the perceived value, which is vision, authority, likability, usefulness, and evidence. Part four, we are looking at the denominator, which is reputation, investment, social, and knowledge. Part five, clarity, conviction, logic, authenticity, resonance, intentionality, transparency, and You-ness. Part six, the 8 archetypes. This is the 8 profiles explaining why are you landing or losing opportunities. We're going to go through this one, for each. Part seven, the diagnostic quiz that you can take for yourself. Let's go yourself and find your trust ratio and discover what's your archetype. Part eight, personalized report, depending on where you are, which archetype you are, show you the glow points, the growth points, and your coaching focus for you, where the focus area for you. Part 9, why this works, the psychology of trust, loss aversion, authority bias, clarity bias, etc. Part 10, the next steps, your checklist and roadmap to raise your value, lower your risk, and multiply clarity. And part 11, if you need more help, I'm going to share with some resources, a power session, or get access to my 3-hour UX job search system. All right, let's get started. Cool. So part one, in terms of introduction, so when you're job searching, people often say, it's about your skills, it's about your experience, it's about networking, but it's kind of vague, right? And if you zoom out, all of it really comes down to just one thing called trust. Hiring managers, recruiters, and even your peers don't ask themselves, can you do the job first, right? What they ask is that ultimately, deep down inside of them, is do I trust you enough to give you a shot? Do I trust you enough to give you a shot? And that single question explains why someone who is less experienced lands the job over you. And I've have experience hiring people who are less experienced. Some are self-taught designers, with like 1 or 2 years experience who have beat up folks who have multiple years of experience and even sometimes better portfolio. But sometimes it's just that unspoken truth, right, of why hiring decisions made. Number two, a candidate with few projects but stronger referrals gets fast track, or why your portfolio might be strong but you still hear nothing back. Because end of the day, skills and experience do matter. Not to say they don't matter, but they filtered through trust. And what you're going to do is why trust decides everything. Because trust is the invisible currency of all careers. Referrals happens when someone trusts you enough to put their name on the line. Offer comes when a hiring manager trusts you won't blow up in their face. And promotion happens when leaders trust you can carry bigger responsibility. So without trust, even the best skills get ignored. With trust, doors opens, often through the back door, not the front. All right. So the blind spot here is that most job seekers are focusing on working on the wrong things. They polish their resumes for the 37th time, right, or their portfolio, and they add another portfolio project to their portfolio, or been optimizing and refining the portfolio for weeks, if not months, at a time. They spend hours applying for roles online, not being really clear in terms of whether the role suits them or not, just applying. But here's the blind spot. Hiring is not a resume competition or a portfolio competition or a design competition, right? It's a trust calculation. Every decision maker, the recruiter, the hiring manager, or even a future teammate that you're going to be, is running this equation in their head and thinking, hey, does this person give me enough value with low enough risk? And do they make it clear enough for me to see it? I repeat again. Does this person give me enough value, low enough risk, and do they make it clear enough for me to see it? All right. So what this guy is going to give you here is that, it's going to introduce to you the hiring trust ratio, a formula that explains how trust is built or lost in the job search, which ultimately comes down to trust equals to perceived value divided by perceived risk times the clarity. And what you're going to learn is what perceived value is. What you're going to know is about see what's the hidden risk that hiring managers worry about so that no resume can fix. You discover why clarity multiplies or destroys trust and how to use it to your advantage. All right. And then finally, you want to diagnose yourself with the trust map and know exactly why you're not landing interviews and offer and what you can do about it. So by the end, you're going to have a very simple and powerful lens for your career. Know where you stand today. See what levels you can pull, more value, less risk, sharper clarity, and learn how to position yourself as a high trust candidate who gets picks first. All right, and that's ultimately the name of the game. All right, so part 2, the hiring trust ratio formula. So at its core, trust, how I kind of simplify it, all right, and I like simplifying things, all right, and putting things in frameworks and formulas. So trust equals to the perceived value divided by the perceived risk times your clarity. So that's the entire game. So what's perceived value? Perceived value is why someone should say yes to you. Perceived risk is why someone might say no. And the clarity is whether they can see it either once clearly. All right, either one of those things clearly. So why perceive matters, right? So it's actually not about your actual skills, projects, or background. It's just how it's being perceived, how you frame them, how you position them. That is very important. You may have strong results, but if they're not visible and no one knows about it, then the value looks low. You may not be risky, but if your story is fuzzy and you don't frame it properly, you don't communicate it clearly, then the risk looks high. You may know your worth, but if you can't see it clearly, trust never lands. So why clarity matters? Value and risk are just the input, right? Clarity is the multiplier. So if you're clear, both your value and your safety are obvious. If you're unclear, people will just default to a no. And that's why clarity takes an average candidate, and makes them trustworthy, or bury a high value candidate who is in doubt. And I've seen multiple examples of that from clients who, on their resume, they have companies that they've worked for, work experience that they have gathered in their career that, all of us would be envious by. But at the same time, they can't seem to make it past the final interview. They can get through the first round, second round, no worries, right? Which is typically the initial resume check, portfolio check, and down to even sometimes the team, right? But ultimately, once it comes down to the final interview, they can't seem to land. And why? It's most of the time it's because of this, the lack of clarity within himself, the lack of self-awareness, and the ability to communicate that value to the hiring manager, the hiring panel, the hiring team, and even especially to the leadership and management as well. Okay? So the point I'm trying to make here is that, every conversation, every application, every interview comes down to this ratio. Does it add more value signals? Does it remove those risk signals? And does it multiply everything with that clarity? All right. And that's how trust is built and how opportunities are open. All right. So let's look at perceived value. So perceived value is the numerator. That what makes people lean forward and say, hey, this person could be worth it. And we're going to break it down into value. VALUE, right? Each of it is acronym, right? If you can't tell. So V is vision, right? So people trust you more than when you point to a future, right? Hiring managers don't hire skills, they hire people who can see ahead. Vision signal is when I know where I'm going and can help you get there too. So for a job search example, you could say, instead of saying that, hey, I'm just a UX designer looking for opportunities, you can say instead, I'm a UX designer focused on simplifying financial tools so that more people can make smarter money decisions. Clear, compelling, future-facing. And we can add a personal reason why that's even stronger. Like, why is this important to you? Right? A equals authority. Authority is a signal of credibility. So it comes from your titles, your track records, your credentials, or your reputation. And people default to authority because it reduces the decision-making risk for them. Right? So the important nuance here is that authority does not equals to evidence, which we should cover later, right? Authority equals to status signal. For example, if you're ex-FANG company, ex-Google, 10 plus years experience, keynote speaker, etc., evidence is the actual proof of impact. The projects, the metrics, the results, the outcomes that you deliver, right? Or have delivered. They are cousins, but different. So a job search example is, for example, your LinkedIn headlines reads, former Amazon UX lead. It gives you the authority before anyone clicks. And that's why when the initial screening process of recruiters, when they look through the resume and they see that you come from a FANG company, a big tech company, or like a well-known company, it gets further along and you get short. There's a higher chance of you getting shortlisted, right? And there's no doubt because it reduces that risk and it creates that perceived higher value. Right? L is for likability. Trust is an emotional, not rational decision. Right? People trust people they like. Quite simply about it. So likability is about the warmth, relatability, and shared values that you have. So in job search example, networking messages that feels personal and human gets reply. Generic outreach, especially those that is copy and paste, and that is all about asking and like just taking from people, taking value from people, making big requests, making a big ask. Yeah, it's not gonna hit well as well. So U is for usefulness, right? People ask, will this person make my life easier? And even as a hiring manager, that's one of the big concerns and things that I'm thinking about. If I bring this person in, will this person make my life easier? Ideally, she should, right? Because if I'm hiring, there's a challenge or problem, I'm looking and facing it, not just on terms of a company business perspective, but also a team perspective. And, if I'm going to be mentoring, managing, coaching this person, I want to make sure that, at least some part of it, you want to make my life easier, right? If not, that's why am I hiring? So usefulness is about showing immediate value, quick wins, practical ideas, and clear contribution. So a job search example is a one-page breakdown of a company's onboarding flow demonstrating your usefulness faster than a portfolio link, right? So sometimes even with a portfolio, it goes away, but you're showing past work, previous company work. If it's a relevant industry, similar industry of where you're applying to, it helps. But even more helpful is if you can show the company that you're applying for some of the values and your proactiveness and your clear thinking, problem solving ability right then there. All right, E, evidence. So evidence is a show don't tell. Right? A classic example. It proves your claim with tangible results. Portfolio, metrics, case study, testimonial, screenshot, all of that counts, right? So in the job site example, instead of saying, hey, I improved the checkout flow. Okay, cool. By how much? And all, right? In what time span? So you will say that, hey, I reduced the checkout abandonment by 18% in 3 months. Great. And then from there, I want to see how you've done that as well. So why value works? It balances both sides of the brain. Vision, likability, usefulness covers the emotional resonance, which is what we call system 1 thinking, all right, which is fast trust. And then authority and evidence covers the rational proof, system 2 thinking, logical trust. When you put them together, perceived value feels undeniable. All right, so next up, we're going to break down the denominator, risk, the invisible weight that drags trust down even if your value is high. All right, so for part 4, perceived risk. Perceived risk is the denominator. So this is what makes people hesitate, pull back, or say, I'm not sure. And it happens a lot of times during the hiring process, right? So if you have a strong value, but if the risk feels high, trust collapse. Whatever you had just put, it collapse, right? So that's why lowering risk is just as important as raising value, right? So we're going to break it down into risk, R-I-S-K. So the first one, R, is your reputation risk. When someone backs you, they put their name out on the line, right? So even if it's like a referral, even if it's a hiring manager, they are putting a risk, their reputation on the line. So that itself is big because, if you're thinking about yourself in their shoes, it would feel quite big. So, right, it's quite a risky thing. So if you feel their reputation takes a hit, and this is the number one fear of referrals and hiring managers, like I shared. So job search example, a weak referral feels like, hey, I don't want to risk my credibility by introducing person. A strong referral feels like, hey, I'm willing to stake my name on them. That's why from referrals coming from friends, close friends especially, and family, relatives and all that, because you have known them for such a long time, there is a reduced risk, perceived risk, a reduced perceived risk from them, right? Because you have this long duration of knowing them, working with them, liking with them and all. And that's why there's the lower risk in that, and that's why they're willing to refer. But when it comes from a cold stranger or someone you are connected but haven't really communicated with for a while, there's ways to kind of shift that risk, reduce that risk for the other person as well. Okay. So I is for investment risk, right? Risk isn't just about money, it's about time, effort, and energy. People ask, will this person take too much work to help them, train them, or onboard them? Especially for a manager, I already got so much on my plate. And I'm going to hire you to help you to reduce all this trouble. But if I hire you on and I have to put in so much more work and take so much more times, and I already have my plate is full already, full with like so much responsibilities, meetings, and initiative to work on, it's going to be a trouble. It's going to be a hassle, right? So a job search example, high risk, a candidate who seems like they need hand-holding. I think a little hand-holding is fine, right? I can still can guide and all that, but it's too much hand-holding, it becomes a trouble. It becomes a problem. Low risk is when a candidate shows initiative and it's a plug-and-play usefulness. Because if we're going to compare two candidates, the plug-and-play one is going to be like a no-brainer. Next one, social risk, right? Human avoid awkwardness and rejection at all costs. If engaging with you feels socially costly, people won't. Social risk equals to embarrassment, discomfort, or uncertainty in their interaction. So for example, in the job search, a long, unclear LinkedIn message feels risky to reply back to because they're not sure, what is going to happen. A short, warm note with context feels safe for them to engage, especially if you're going to make it ultra specific and relevant to this person that you're reaching out to. K is for knowledge gap. So uncertainty creates risk. When your story, skills, intentions are unclear, or not clear at all, people assume the worst, right? They're always going to perceive and assume the worst. And once people have the assumption, it becomes really tough to change that assumption and their thinking, especially that first impression, right? Because the human brain defaults to, if I don't know, it must be dangerous. So a job search example is that a portfolio with missing context, no role, no result, results, naturally. A case study that shows process, result, helps to close the gap. So end of the day, why risk matters? Psychology research shows that, loss aversion is twice as strong as gains. That means that people feel pain of risk 2 to 3 times more than they feel the joy of value. Repeat. People feel pain of risk 2 to 3 times more than they feel the joy of value, right? So getting the risk, solving this risk and reducing it as much as possible is super important. So even if your value is high, risk can outweigh it. And that's why the smartest candidates focus not only on adding proof, also removing fear. So next, we're going to look at clarity, the multiplier. So even if your value is high and the risk is low, if you can't express it clearly, trust will never land. Right? Let's get into it. So part 5, clarity, the multiplier. So clarity is not the numerator or the denominator, it is the multiplier. It multiplies the entire equation. If you have strong value, low risk, but you can't express it clearly, trust collapse. So we can be average in both, but with clarity, trust rises. And that's why clarity is honestly the deciding factor in interviews, portfolio, and conversation. And we're going to break it down into clarity. So C is for conviction, right? People trust those who sound and trust like themselves, right? Who sound like them and trust like themselves, right? Conviction is calm confidence and not arrogance. And it's the difference between I think I can to here is how I'm going to do it, right? So conviction. So job search example, someone with low conviction would be, I kind of work on this project, yeah. Right? High conviction is, I've led this project before and delivered this specific outcome. Conviction. Logic. Clarity depends on structure. A messy story feels untrustworthy. A logical flow feels solid. So if people can follow your reasoning, they will trust your conclusion, right? So a job search example, a case study walkthroughs that follows very simple framework, right? Problem, action, results is easy to trust. A scattered storytelling where you feel like you're all over the place, or you just go through like the direct design thinking process without real connection between the dots, especially the challenges and the decisions made. It just feels like guessing. And again, it creates, it's not clear. A for authenticity. Authenticity. All right. People don't trust polished robots. They trust humans. Authenticity is showing up as yourself, not hiding behind jargons or templates. So a job search example is networking messages that sounds human, get reply. And that's why what I share with my clients and teach my clients is really about creating this very specific, relevant, giving folks a reason why to apply your message is very important. And it gets, average my clients gets about 20 to 30% in terms of reply rate. The highest one I've got from one of my clients is 85%. But average is around that. I personally get around 30 to 40% reply rate, right? And the average job application gets, I would say, is about 1 or 0.1% of reply rate, right? So a cold message in the industry standard is about 10%. So generally my clients and myself, we get much higher because of this authenticity approach as well, all right? So compared to something that says, hey, I am my over, it gets a no. And we see tons of that as well. R is for resonance. Facts inform, but story resonates. All right. Trust grows when people feel like you get them. And resonance is an emotional clarity, making others feel seen. So a job site example is that instead of just talking about metrics alone, like I increase retention by 10%, great. But with resonance, you will kind of share a little more of the context. I focus on reducing the frustrations users felt at checkout. Because of that, retention rose by 10%, right? And if you can share the exact things and decision that you made in the design decisions and the changes that you made in terms of the UX, the UI, the flow, that goes a mile deeper as well. All right. So I is for intentionality. Every word story has a purpose. No fluff, no filter, no just in case slides. Intentionality makes you look sharp, respectful of people's time. So a job search example is that a 2-minute pitch that lands one big coin is better than a 20 minutes ramble that loses the audience. And a lot of times with these case studies, presentation or portfolio reviews, people can go on for a whole ramble in terms of the story and of their presentation, and they don't get to the point. Or the hiring manager or the hiring team or the interviewer, after listening to that presentation, doesn't seem to get like 2 to 3 key points or evidence or your advantages of like what you did and how you did it differently and what's unique about you and your approach and the value that you have contributed. If they can't get that, then it's like you have missed the point. T is for transparency. Hiding gaps makes people suspicious. Owning them builds trust. Transparency reduces risk by showing people that you have nothing to hide. So a job search example is a low transparency is you avoiding employment gaps. High transparency is that you're just sharing that. Hey, I took 6 months off for caregiving and here's what I've learned. All right. Especially in the resume, right? When people have short stints in different roles and careers, most people just leave it as is, right? They don't make the change. But for my client, one of my clients is specifically as well, he had short stints, a year, less than a year, less than 2 years at each role. And sometimes it's really not his fault. He got laid off, the company restructured, or the contract ended, or whatever, right? And the key thing is that we want to control that narrative. We want to put in the reasons why, right? So that when a recruiter, a hiring manager, a management, a leader is reviewing your resume and looking through that, and even what you share, right? You control the narrative. That's within your control and not outside your control. If you control the narrative, you control it, you reframe it, and you reposition it to the truthfulness of what actually happens, and share it. If not, people would then create an impression or assumption of what happens, and that sticks. And it's very hard to change it. All right, why? You-ness, right? The strongest trust is personal. You-ness is your unique voice, your style, your quirks, your values. If you sound like everyone else, you're forgettable. So job search example here is that two portfolios can show the same UX project, but one reads like every other case studies, which you see quite often. The other has personality, clear voice, and stands out, especially one that tells a story, right? A unique story of actually what happened and what's their role in each of that, and how have they managed the challenges, overcome those challenges, engage stakeholders. Those helps as well. And if you can put in a little humor, their personality, inject their personality, that goes a lot deeper as well. All right. So why clarity matters? Clarity is the lens. With clarity, value shines, risk shrinks. Without clarity, value is invisible, risk feels bigger. And that's why clarity is the most controllable trust level in the job search. You may not control your past jobs, but you may not risk, but you can always increase your clarity by reframing and repositioning it. All right, so next, we're going to see how it all comes together in the trust map, where the 8 archetypes are going to show you exactly where you stand today. So part 6, the trust map. So the hiring trust ratio explains why some people get fast track while others get ghost. It's not random, it's all about where you land on the trust map. So the x-axis is value, low, high. Y-axis, risk, high, low. Clarity, multiply, overlay, all right? And that will create the 8 archetypes. So in terms of the table, let me just minimize. All right, like this. It's very simple. So there's the archetype, the value, risk, clarity, what it looks like, and your focus. So if you have high value, low risk, high clarity, it looks like you're called the trust supernova. And what it looks like, you look like the obvious value. You look like you have obvious value, you're low risk, you're able to communicate clearly, you're a no-brainer, higher. All right. So just keep on it and position where your dream was. So we're going to go through each of it below, but just look at all of them, all right? The different permutations and combinations of that, all right? So let's slow down and give each archetype a detailed breakdown, all right? It makes this easier for you to understand why your job search is working or not, all right? Rather than just going to the overview, but that's the overview, okay? Cool. So the first one, like I said, the trust supernova. Let me make bigger. So this is where your value is high, your risk is low, your clarity is high. And this is great. This is where we want to be. All right, and this is the gold standard. You bring obvious value, you feel safe to back, you communicate with conviction, you're the candidate hiring managers fight for because they can see it and feel it. All right, the hiring managers will think that, hey, this is a no-brainer, they make me look good, deliver results, and I won't regret the decision. So your focus, continue doing what you're doing, stay sharp, reinforce your unique positioning, so you don't just land a role, but you land the right role that excites you and fulfill you. And it starts a lot with that clarity as well. Right? And that's what the number one thing that I help my clients with, not just starting on their resume and their portfolio and all. Those is like, those are clear and that's obvious, and we definitely need to do it. But what I feel is more important is getting that clarity on your career. That's more importantly also about yourself. All right. So second one is the underseller. Value is high, risk is low, but clarity is low. Right? So you got the track record, you got the proof, you got the result, but you undersell yourself. And I see this so many times. Right? You struggle to make others see your value, so you come across smaller than you are. So from a hiring manager perspective, they feel safe, they are capable and safe, but I'm not sure if they can step up to bigger challenges, especially if I give them. Right? So the focus here, clarity. You need to do a lot more clarity. Learn how to tell your story that excites people, excites you, excites others as well, and focus on pitching, storytelling, on your portfolio and interviews, being more confident in your interview. The third is the maverick. High value, high risk, high clarity. Right? You're impressive, you're charismatic, but you carry baggage. Frequent job changes, culture fit questions, a reputation that's for being too much. You communicate well, but sometimes too well, which makes the risk as visible as the value. The hiring manager would think that, hey, they can deliver big results, but this could blow up my face if it goes wrong as well. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? The coaching here is reduce your risk signals, show reliability, humility, and teamwork, highlight stability and fit instead of just your raw talent. Number 4, the chaotic genius. high value, high risk, low clarity. So you're brilliant on paper, massive in delivery, your portfolio seems confusing, your interview answers you ramble, your story feels scattered, and people sense that. They can sense the talent, but they just can't trust it. So the hiring manager would think that, hey, there's something here, but I don't have the time or appetite to figure them out. So the coaching here is get your clarity right first. Package your story, simplify your messaging, cut out the chaos, and make your value easy to see and your risk less distracting. Number 5, the safe and forgettable. Low value, low risk, high clarity. So you're easy to like and easy to hire, but you don't bring that much to stand out. You're safe, but not exciting. Hiring managers may respect you, but they don't chase you. So the hiring manager will think, hey, they'll be fine, but nothing about them scream like a must hire. Like I want to call them back immediately and send them an offer. Right? So the coaching value here is you want to build value, go deep on your results, prove and standout contribution. Saves gets you interview, but memorable gets you offer. Number 6, the invisible one. This is where you have low value, low risk, low clarity. So you're not risky at all, but you're not remarkable either, right? Your presence fade into the background, you have generic portfolio, vague answers, little proof, you get lost in the pile. The hiring manager would think, hey, they're harmless, and I don't see why we would pick them over anyone else. Your coaching focus here is focus on your clarity and your value, build a strong personal story and highlight specific wins so that you can stand out and not just blend in. Number 7, the overhyped talker. Low on value, high on risk, high on clarity, right? So you talk a big game, you're confident, you're smooth, even likable, right? But the substance isn't there. Hiring manager sense the gap. A lot of shines, little depth. Hiring manager would think that, hey, this person sounds impressive, but something just doesn't add up. You know, the gut sense in them, intuition and all, especially designers, we all have that intuition, right? Makes them feel like, hey, you're a risky bet. So the coaching focus here is you're going to add evidence, you need to build up real value behind those words, address those gaps openly instead of hiding them behind charisma. And the last one, the trust black hole. Low value, high risk, low clarity. This is the hardest position. You don't even show enough value. You seem risky. You can't communicate clearly. Everything just points to a no. So the hiring manager will think, this feels dangerous. No way. Not going to take a chance. So the coaching focus here, start over again. Small wins, clear storytelling, simple proof of impact. Focus on building trust step by step and not landing a big role. Oh, right away. Okay. So why, again, does archetypes matter? Because when you know what your archetype is and where you stand, you will stop guessing while you're stuck. You can see exactly what lever you can pull to raise your value, lower your risk, or multiply clarity. And then you can take focused action instead of just spinning your wheels and just doing the same old, getting the same results. Because that is the definition of insanity, right? You want to take different actions to get different results. All right, so next session, you're going to move into the diagnostic quiz so you can score yourself across 1 to 10, across value, risk, and clarity, and see which archetypes you fall into. All right, so part 7, the diagnostic quiz. So this is where you're going to test yourself. As you go through this, you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 obviously being low and weak, 10 being high and strong. All right, so don't overthink. Go with your first gut instinct. Step 1, we're going to score your value. So vision. Number 1 is my career feels scattered and unclear. 10, I paint a compelling, future-focused story that excites others. Where do you stand? Authority. 1, I show little credibility and repetition signals. 10, my background, track record, and credentials signals clear authority. L, likability. 1, my interactions feel transactional and core. 10, people enjoy talking to me and want to support me. U, usefulness. 1, it's not clear how it can be useful right away. 10, I make it obvious how I can create quick wins and help immediately. E, evidence. I have little to no proof of impact. 10, I show strong measurable results and clear case studies. So once you're done, average your 5 scores, and that will give you your value score out of 10. Step 2, score your risk. R, reputational risk. 1, referring or hiring me feels like a big gamble. 10, backing me feels safe. People will stake their name on me. I, investment risk. 1, I look like I will take a lot of time and effort to train and onboard. 10, I look plug and play and easy to integrate. S, social risk. 1, conversations with me feel awkward and forced. 10, interactions feels natural, low pressure, and comfortable. K, knowledge gap. My story skills are unclear and raise doubts. 10, my skills, stories, intentions are easy to understand. And that's why clarity is so important and self-awareness is so important. All right, so once you're done, average your 4 scores, get your risk score out of 10. Step 3, score your clarity. C, conviction. 1, I sound tentative and apologetic. 10, I speak with calm, confidence, belief. L, logic. My stories, 1, my stories feel scattered. 10, my stories are structured and easy to follow. A, authenticity. 1, I come across as generic and fake. 10, I feel real, human, and congruent. R, resonance. 1 equals to my stories don't connect emotionally. 10, I make people feel seen and understood. I, intentionality. 1, I ramble with filtered content. 10, every word and story has a purpose. T, transparency. 1, I hide my weakness and my gaps. 10, I'm open and upfront, which builds trust. Y, You-ness. 1, I sound like everyone else. 10, my unique style and voice comes true. So once you have that, average your 7 scores and you get your clarity scores out of 10. So step 4, we're going to calculate your trust ratio, right? So the trust ratio, as a recap, trust ratio equals to value score divided by your risk score times your clarity score, right? So it's the average of all those items, okay? And once you have that, you're going to find your archetype, right? So anywhere if you score, 6 and above, that will be high, right? If you want to really push bar, 7 and above will be high, 4 and below would be low, right? In 5, you make a decision and see where you're at, okay? All right, and then you have your high and low, right? So make it simple for you, okay? So once you score, place yourself on the map. Where do you belong? Or which archetype? And next part, you're going to see the personalized report for each archetype in terms of your glow point, what's working, your growth point, what's missing, and what's your coaching focus. What level can you pull next? All right, part 8, personalized report. So if you got the trust supernova, congratulations. Your glow point is that you have a strong track record and proof of impact. You clearly communicate, people understand your value instantly, and you have saved the bag. No major risk or doubt. The growth point here is the risks of compliance. You may play small instead of aiming big, aiming high. Offers might come or will come, but not all will excite or align deeply. So without directions, you can drift into roles that feel fine but unfulfilling. And I've seen this quite a lot of times as well, right? And your coaching focus here will be double down on your vision. Position yourself for roles that align with your biggest goals. And more so is in terms of your principles, what I call principles, or your non-negotiables, and the things that really excites you. Use your leverage, negotiate your pay, responsibility, and condition boldly. Think fit for me as much as fit for them, right? So it's going to create a win-win situation. If you get the underseller, your growth points here would be you have real skills, results, impact under the hood. You are safe to vouch for, you're reliable, you're not risky, people respect your work ethics and outcomes. But your growth point is B, communication gaps hide your strengths. Interviews and portfolios don't capture fully your true impact. People underestimate you because you underestimate yourself. So the coaching focus here is work on your clarity, tighten up your storytelling and your confidence, and build it up so that you can deliver it better, right? Build case studies that highlight measurable outcomes and not just tasks. Practice short, powerful speeches for portfolio reviews and interviews. Right, next one, the maverick. So your glow points will be you're high performing, impressive, people notice you quickly, you bring bold ideas, presence, strong results, you stand out in interviews and conversations. But your growth point is that you have high risk signals, job hopping, repetition concerns, culture fit concerns. People admire you, but they hesitate to bet on you. Confidence may sometimes come across as ego, right? And people don't like to hire people with too much ego. So your coaching focus here is lower your perceived risk, emphasize on the collaboration, your humility and long-term commitment with the company, share examples of teamwork and stability, not just your personal wins, and reframe your age as strengths and reliability. Number 4, you're the chaotic genius. So your glow points here would be you have strong skills, outcomes exist, but they're just buried. Potential to deliver big value if unlocked. Creativity and drive comes through once people dig a little deeper. And sometimes people don't have that time, but they have to put a bit of effort if they want to know more about you. So the growth points here is that poor clarity makes your value invisible. Massive communication equals high effort for others to understand you. The risk signals are amplified by your lack of structure. So the coaching focus here is start with clarity. Structure your career story, simplify your case studies, show reliability by tightening your presentation, less chaos, more control over here, and make your brilliance easy for others to see without requiring additional effort from their side, right? Because people don't really have the time for it, especially in today's age. Number 5, safe but forgettable. So your glow points is that you're clear and easy to engage with, your pleasant role is higher, likable, people enjoy interacting with you. Your growth point is that the low perceived value. You don't stand out in a competitive market. You risk of being overlooked for bolder candidates. You feel safe, equals low excitement, slow career growth. So the coaching focus here is for you to raise up your value, sharpen your achievements, highlight your unique skills, add stand-up projects and tangible proof of impact, move from pleasant option to a must-hire candidate. Number 6, the invisible one. The glow points here is that you are neutral risk. People don't see you as a problem. You don't push people away. The growth points here is that you fade into the background, nothing memorable or compelling, low value, low clarity, easily ignored in application and conversations. Opportunity passes because no one can seize a reason to choose you. So the coaching focus here is to build your clarity up first, get your career stories and positioning tight, add evidence, to build up your value, small measurable wins to prove your impact, and create visibility. Portfolio refresh, share your content, and increase your networking. Number 7, the overhyped talker. Glow points here, you're a strong communicator, people like how you present yourself, confidence, polish in interviews, easy to connect with at first glance. But your growth point is that you have weak substance. The value there doesn't seem to match the presentation. The risk signal, gaps, overclaim, lack of proof makes people cautious about hiring you. Can feel like all talk but no depth. So the coaching focus here is to build up your evidence, show real results in case studies, address your gaps openly, honesty reduce the risk, match communication strength with tangible values. And the last one, trust black hole. The glow points here is not yet, and that's okay. This is a starting point, not a permanent label for you. The growth point here is you're low value, high risk, low clarity, so every trust signal is missing. So people say no instantly, not worth the gamble. So your career can feel like it's stalled or plateau. So the coaching focus here is to rebuild step by step. Start with small wins to show proof of value, then work on your clarity basics, getting a clear story, simple answers, structured portfolios, and then focus on lowering your risk with consistency, transparency, and reliability. So the whole point of this archetype report is that each archetype isn't a fixed identity. It's just a diagnosis, all right? It's just diagnosing where you are at. It gives you the glow points, what is really working, your growth points, which is what's holding you back, and your coaching focus, what to do next. So this way, the trust isn't vague anymore. It's concrete, measurable, and fixable. Fixable. That's more important. Okay? So next part, we're going to move into part 9, why this works. All right? So you're going to understand a little more about the behavioral psychology, and you see why the science behind the formula. All right, so why this works? So the hiring ratio is very simple, but it sits on top of very deep behavioral psychology. So every component, value, risk, clarity, maps to how people naturally make decisions. Because on the end of the day, to hire you is a hiring decision, right? To get hired is a hiring decision. It's a decision that someone has to make, the hiring manager and the company as well. So we're going to kind of understand how those decisions happen. All right, so number 1, loss aversion. risk more than reward. So from the prospect theory, people feel losses 2 to 3 times more strongly than equivalent gains. So even if your value is high, one risk outweighs it all. So example, a brilliant candidate with messy communication risk gets rejected faster than an average candidate who seems safe, right? So that's why we want to reduce our risk as much as important as adding our value, right? We want to make sure it's not a one or the other, right? It's both at the same time. Number 2, authority and proof, value signals. So Cialdini's persuasion research shows that authority and social proof are universal trust drivers. Authority, do they look credible? A title, track records, brands, and proof evidence, can they show that it works? Case studies, results. Example, ex-Google designer who increased retention by 18%, combines both. Trust lands fastest when authority and evidence align. Number 3, cognitive ease, clarity bias. Right? So Daniel Kahneman again says that people trust what's easy to understand. The brain equates clarity with truth. If it's simple and clear, it feels safe and more credible. So, for example, a concise, well-structured case study feels more trustworthy than a long jargon-filled one, even if both describes the same project. And that's why clarity is the multiplier. It changes how both the values and risks are perceived. Number 4, know, like, trust progression. All right. So common sales principles kind of shares that people need to know you, like you, trust you before saying yes. All right. So value maps to the know and like. Risk reduce maps to the trust. Clarity makes the whole progression smoother. So for example, a warm, authentic outreach, likability, plus a clear pitch, clarity, proof of impact evidence lowers the barrier to say yes. So the trust ratio operationalizes the know, like, trust journey entirely. All right. Number 5, repetition and social capital, risklets. So sociologist Mark works on weak ties. People extend opportunities when repetition risk is low. So if referring you feels dangerous, the door will stay shut. For example, a mutual connection won't introduce you to a hiring manager if your LinkedIn feels messy. So if your LinkedIn profile doesn't have a profile image, banner, it's not tidy up, it feels risky. It feels like you might be a scammer or a spammer or someone is risky, right? So people won't want to do that. So you need to make sure that everything is all clean and tidy up as well. Right? And that's one of the things that I work with my clients with as well. So managing that repetition risk is the key to backdoor referrals. Number 6, emotional contagion, clarity in delivery. So emotion transfer. If you communicate with hesitation, you transfer doubt. If you communicate with calm clarity, you transfer confidence. So for example, 2 candidates with the same resume, one rambles and the other answers with structure. Who's going to get the offer? The one that is going to be more confident, more structured. So clarity doesn't just show competence. It feels like competence. It feels like competence, right? That's important. Number 7, identity and resonance. People trust people who feel like them. In-group bias. The resonance, the R in the clarity, builds up that sense of shared values. So example, a designer saying that, hey, I care about making financials less overwhelming for everyday people, resonates with a fintech manager who shares the same mission, especially with the company who is sharing that same mission, or even the founder or the CEO of that company, and one of the reasons why they started out that company. But again, it must be true to you. It must be something from your lived personal experience as well. Then you can say it with conviction and clarity. Okay? So resonance makes trust emotional, not just logical. All right? So what the formula works? When you kind of put it all together, trust equals perceived value divided by perceived risk times clarity. So loss aversion explains the denominator. Risk weighs more. Authority, proof, likability explains the numerator, value. Cognitive ease and emotional contingence explains the multiplier, clarity. All right. So again, the psychology of the equation, and hiring managers don't consciously calculate it, but their brains do. And sometimes that's why a recruiter, they can only see one side of a picture. All right. They can only see the scores, right? But actually, in terms of the score, you could say one thing, but why and what they've written down in terms of the ATS and the assessment could be one thing, but not the full complete truth. All right. Because the hiring managers in itself, when they're making the decision, sometimes can't articulate it. But intuitively, they're making a decision, right? So they don't consciously calculate it, but the subconscious are telling them something else. And that's why they feel like, hey, a gut feel that decision, this person is not a good hire. All right? Or this person is a good hire and you want to extend them an offer. All right, so in the 10th part, the next steps, you're going to get a reflection checklist and action plan. All right, cool. So part 10, next steps. So now you have learned the formula, you've seen the archetypes, and you know where you stand. So now it's time for you to move. Your checklist. First, know your score. Take the self-assessment. Be honest with yourself. Name your archetype. Don't dodge it. Clarity starts with seeing yourself clearly first. Double your value. Add proof, results, visions that matter. Halve your risk. Remove any doubts. Address gaps. Reduce friction. Multiply with clarity. Speak right. Show your story simply and confidently. Focus on the levers. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just pull the ones that is the biggest lever for you first. All right? And repeat. Trust builds over time. Every small shifts compound. So your step-by-step roadmap here is number 1, assess, complete the worksheet, get your value score, your risk score, and your clarity score. Diagnose, figure out who's your archetype, what is your glow points, growth points, and your coaching focus. Then from there, decide your level. Low value, you build up your proof and your authority. High risk, lower your doubts, increase safety. Low clarity, sharpen your story, delivery, and resonance. Step 4, act small, act fast, right? So pick one small thing, one thing that you can work on this week to shift your ratio. Is it about sharing a quick case study post to show your value, simplify your outreach message, which on clarity, or be transparent about a career gap in your resume or your LinkedIn profile? Address that risk. Step 5, reflect and repeat. Rescore yourself every month, track your progress, watch how your ratio climbs. And step 6, if you need help, get help. If you don't want to move it, if you want to move faster, don't do it alone. Clarity, value, and risk are easy to shift with outside coaching. And that's where Career Creators comes in. Right? Okay with me. So closing thought here is, as I shared at the start, trust isn't magic. It's just math. When you understand the ratio, you can control it. When you can control your trust, you control access to interviews, offer, and opportunities. So right, so part 11, if you need more help, you've now seen the formula, you've scored yourself, you know your archetype. Now the question is, will you fix it alone or you want to get some help, right? You're going to get some help and can get there faster. Because most people I know stay stuck because they try to patch things randomly by themselves, tweaking your resume, adding one more project to their portfolio, sending out another 50 application. Please don't do that. But none of them changes the thing that matters the most. The trust ratio, or those levels or those items in the trust ratio, right? And this is why you keep spinning your wheels and doesn't seem to get any progress. So how can I help? If you're ready to shift your ratios faster, here are 3 ways to start. So number 1, first one is free resources. You can check out my backdoor referral framework and learn how to get referred into your dream companies without applying online over here. Click on this link over here. Next one, I have 50 plus UX career guides. It's a PDF pack that covers portfolios, interviews, outreach, job search strategy, all over there. So if you want, grab it there. As well as this one is a 90 minutes UX portfolio training. This is the same exact workshop that I use inside of my coaching program as well. This is what my clients pay me, and this is the exact same training. It's a live recording of that workshop as well over here. Number 2, if you want more direct access to me, you can book a career power hour at $400. It's a one-on-one clarity sessions where you get to diagnose what's your trust ratio, we fix your biggest blocker, and we'll create a 30 days action plan, right? Specifically around how to identify your dream companies, I'm going to show you exactly how to find the dream people in those dream companies to outreach with, and how to craft those messages for them as well, right? Plus, you get another 30 days of community access for support and accountability inside of my community. So you get to see how I interact with my clients, past recordings, all the other materials that I have, trainings I have. I thought about, 70 plus recordings of live office hours that I have with them, and another 12 plus. I think it's about 16 plus, 20 plus trainings, workshops that I've run inside as well. So you're gonna get access to all of them, all right, inside of once you just book a power hour with me, okay, and this will give you additional support along the way. All right, so you can book a time here. Or if you prefer to do it yourself first, what I have is a 3 hours UX job search system at $49. It's a simple, proven system for you to book real interviews in just 3 hours a week. No job bots, no applying. I'll show you exactly how to build up your dream network, where you have this network where you can hear about jobs before they're posted, get strategic outreach, so you can reach out to hiring managers without feeling awkward or salesy and actually get replies. So again, in terms of replies, a typical job application gets anywhere from 1% or less than 1% of replies. For average cold outreach message, it gets about 10% response rate. For my clients, I get anywhere from 20 to 30% response rate. But see, myself, I get 30 to 40% response rate from my outreach. For my top performing client, one of them actually got about 85% response rate. So definitely works. All right. So, and then the other one is a minimum valuable pitch, or what I call the Trojan House stock. Creates a pitch so compelling people want to meet you before even seeing your resume as well. All right. So you can follow step by step and learn your first insider call under a week. Even if you've ghosted before, you can get direct access, instant access over here as well. So final words for me, again, trust is the key. And I hope like you through seeing this, you got kind of that message as well, right? The formula shows you where you stand. The shift happens when you start acting on it, right? So if you want help pulling the right lever faster, I'll be happy and more than happy, and a pleasure and an honor to coach you through it as well. All right. This is me, Joseph, signing off.